Hey, so
100%.
we got into this discussion earlier, Mike, and this is kind of in your wheelhouse because
Sweet.
you start with high school. I was talking about some of the smooth transitions guys coming out of the summit are making to to Power Six schools, and
Yeah.
I was like, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but kind of not. I was like, shoot, maybe the summit's better than I thought, right?
Grant Nelson had a pretty nice night last
Well,
night.
and he's just one of many,
Right,
right?
yeah.
And I get it. DeMarinis was teasing me. He's like, oh, you still got traumatic stress disorder, so that's fresh on the brain. But we've just like seen it, and I think William Kyle the third is a plug and play guy, right? Like
Yeah.
he wherever he goes, he's going to have impact.
He's-
Frankie Fiddler is in high demand. Mayo is going to be in high demand. Those are just off the rip, right?
Mayo is very high demand.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Hey, blue blood demand.
yeah. Like,
Oh, I saw it.
like
A lot of power six for a lot of those guys.
like Zeke Mayo at Kansas sure does feel like a
Yeah.
thing, like a fit, because then he's shooting. And
So I was, and this was, I didn't necessarily, the discussion wasn't between myself and Ravi, so I didn't get a chance to hammer him, but I thought it was an interesting take, to say the least, that a lot of those guys get missed out due to being lazy, because I don't think that's it. I think it's more lack of visibility.
DeMarinis put the lazy on me. I think there is, if you work harder, you can find those guys. But I hit back with it's an accessibility to being visible, right? Like if you're like Grant Nelson's a great example. He's from Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Where's the closest really good AAU team to Devil's Lake, North Dakota?
Minneapolis.
That's a pretty long way.
Yeah.
So is he driving to and from Minneapolis all the time? That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So like if that's the situation you're in,
Right.
then that's an accessibility issue. And yes, if coaches were really grinding and doing whatever, like they probably could have found him anyway. But so that's where Matt DeMarinis threw the laziness thing at me. And I was like, I mean, if you want to put it like that, but there's like, if you're in Aurora, Nebraska as Baylor Shireman, maybe it's a little easier to find you. Maybe they just missed.
His recruiting was interesting.
Baylor played on a pretty dang good AAU team.
Yes, he did.
That like had a bunch of eyeballs on them a lot, and he committed early.
Yep.
And
so I said he was a little different.
That one's a little.
Sure.
I get it, and Baylor's always gonna have a chip on his shoulder because that's just who he is. But at the same time, it's like he committed like in the spring, like before that junior senior year, spring summer AAU stuff. He committed way early, and yes, South Dakota State was the only school to offer him. How about instead?
At the time,
right? Yeah. How about instead of like hammer people for not noticing him, how about you give credit to South Dakota State that found
for
him?
Noticing him,
like,
or North
or whatever,
yeah,
or North Dakota State with Grant Nelson.
I get that. That sounds cool, but when it's only one, it's more of an indictment on everybody else.
Well, everyone else
than it is the good to SDSU, because SDSU is good. That's a really good quality program.
Why they win all the time.
It's not like they're doing something out of the ordinary. I mean, it's just what they do.
And people knew. I mean, like Omaha could have or whatever. Like they didn't offer him, and they knew who he was. Trust me.
So this kind of was birthed out of this whole philosophical recruiting thing
that we were having with Omaha.
With mid-majors, and it started with Omaha when Frankie hit the transfer portal, and we were talking about like the recruiting kind of ideology and where it could go if you want Omaha to be like a player with so many good local area talents. Because look at all the guys playing everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and I brought up.
Talk about miss. There's been a lot of misses.
You were pretty bothered by the fact that
I just don't know how you can sit there at Omaha and continue to watch guys from your city beat you in your league.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill for me to swallow.
A little tough.
If I'm the coach there, or if I'm part of that athletic department, or if I'm just a guy who wants basketball in our state to be good, which I am, by the way, I want Omaha to keep all the guys that are going other places in the Summit League and go win the Summit League with those guys.
How hard do you think it is, Jerome, to set a culture?
Whatever.
I've
been called way worse.
It's just habit. It's
just it's fine.
To set a culture where you're going to be a training ground.
It's hard.
Okay.
because that's exactly what the Summit League and leagues like that have turned into. So
because
even Valley
in
and-
turn,
I compared it to JUCO.
but because in
Kind of.
turn, don't they want to go get more ready-made guys? So they're not as willing to go through the development thing.
Right.
So it seems like a catch-22.
yeah, it's kind of like the minor leagues now. I mean, that's the best comparison you can make but they're not in your system, so it's not like the minor leagues. Because you have storm chasers and those guys are kind of just waiting their time and developing and whatever, but they're not in the same system.
It's more like it's more like Moneyball, where the A's would develop people and then the Yankees would go buy them out.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
That's what it is.
That's 100%
But
what's happening.
The A's still won a lot of games when they were doing that.
Right.
Like, you can do it's harder. I get it. It's harder.
You just have to adjust.
But there's a way to do it and be successful.
What would you recommend?
Oof. Well, somehow there has to be some sort of regulation around the agents, quote, air quotes, using agents because not advisors, agents
guys that train kids that because I train you or I do train you, you get to use my facilities. So I think I should be.
I've got some ownership over it.
Yeah, or there has to be a little bit of kind of that, but there are people that say they're actual real agents that you just kind of never heard of that are pulling strings behind the bat. Coaches would call me in January about people that are in the Summit League.
How would you be privy to that, sir?
Yeah, it's just what I mean. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, if this guy were to do this, we might be interested in him being a landing spot. And it's like, man, they're in the middle of their season right now. I'm not going to bother them with that.
Are you surprised that kind of that vibe that we've talked about for years with basketball has, and I won't say handlers, but I mean guys, right? That befriend good, promising young athletes. Are you surprised it's made its way into football as fast as it has?
Not necessarily because
of the birth of 7-on-7.
Yeah, because we have it. We're behind the times when it's 7-on-7,
state of Nebraska.
Yeah, state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's been
late to the party.
It's been a 5, 6, 7 year deal, and that's been going on for years. Other places, yeah, holy cow. And then Latcher's honors,
I'm kind of surprised it didn't happen faster, to be honest with you.
It's a little
people see opportunity in kids,
trainers,
right? They see opportunity to advance themselves, whether it's
hey,
I trained this kid, now I get a better job, or hey,
I think that's more ego though, because they're not getting a job, right?
No, but
no
they
one's
still
hire
think
them.
they are. At least from the guys I've met.
Yeah, no one's hiring them.
I understand no one is, but that doesn't stop them from thinking someone's going to hire them.
Or some guys just like the glad hand with the schools.
Yeah, and that's all. It's just
they feel important.
Yeah, it's an ego thing. Yeah, 100%.
They feel like they have a sense of importance.
It's an ego thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So don't you think that because you kind of see it in parental behavior too? Do you think it's been expedited because of all the local success over the last handful of years?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what parents are. Why not my kid? Why don't all of that?
And it doesn't always have to be a negative. I'm just saying, it's like, gosh, there's so many opportunities out there. Who can I get? So then they kind of, it's not desperate, but they're looking for people that can help get them where they want to be. So you're kind of
they believe people that maybe don't have the actual true best interest and more interest for themselves.
So speaking of where people want to be, let's get down to brass tacks here. Where's Chucky Hepburn going to go?
He's not in the portal.
He's not.
Is he going to be in the portal?
I literally just talked to him.
I will tell you, I don't.
Do you think he's going to be in the portal?
Oof. At the beginning of the week, I was like, no way. And now,
did Store change your mind a little?
Probably a little.
Mine too, a little.
Yeah, but he is the man there.
Yep.
And they love him. The fan base loves him.
I mean, if we're just putting 2 and 2 together, I mean, Frankie's not going there if Chucky's telling him he's leaving.
Right.
He's not visiting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, okay, here's the deal with that.
Visit
too.
or not visit,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're going to see your buddy,
Yeah.
you call it.
Yeah, it was. They were already going up there to hang out with him.
I understand.
And, like, that was already planned.
and
then now, so Frankie and a group of friends
So
were going to see their friend just hang out in Madison for the weekend. And then when the staff at Wisconsin found that out, they were like, all right, well, let's just turn this into a thing. And they did. And hey, the only way that like those two go together would be at a Wisconsin.
I'm 100%
like the whole like those three with William Kyle. And that, like
I never understood that though.
The other option now Nebraska would do that.
Well, they could for sure do two.
Yeah, and they would probably fit.
Yeah.
So, but I think if the three of them are actually going to
because William Kyle the third is there tomorrow or Monday.
Nebraska Monday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Buzz Williams is at his house probably right now.
William Kyle's.
Yeah.
Yep.
So on an in-home, and then Wake Forest is doing it in-home.
Watch Texas A&M, he seems like he would fit.
Yeah.
when I say plug and play, I mean plug and play.
I mean, am I crazy to say like if Kalkbrenner left Creighton, like he'd be a good fit at Creighton?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Kalkbrenner's staying or going. I really don't.
I bet it's 50-50.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he's staying. But
and here's the thing, I think I can safely say this, and you'd agree. He's still only going to get better.
No, yeah, he's not even
William Kyle?
Yes.
And I'm just saying, where is a place that we've seen big men get aggressively better?
Like
listen, William Kyle's effective field goal efficiency rate was 94%. Yeah. That's incredible.
I'm just saying, if you want to be the best big man you can be, Creighton is the best option.
And his upside is
it's unreal,
believable.
He still can't shoot a free throw. So
hey, that's a skill he can work on.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
We'll figure it out.
Like there's things like he needs to get better.
Yeah,
like he
100%.
Shots making a shot outside of 4 feet is probably that's a challenge.
But in the meantime,
pretty good at what he does.
In the meantime, he's
pretty good at what he does.
Freaking Dennis Rodman, right? Like that's what he is. Like shot blocker. Maybe even more above the rim. I mean, he's can catch lobs and stuff, but
he
looks runner, shot blocker,
he looks fantastic now.
Yeah, he looks great.
He has these muscles.
Yeah,
And when I saw him in Sioux Falls,
I was like, this is a tail end of the season at Omaha. I'm like, he looks fantastic.
Yeah. His body's
like just their bodies changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think is part of it, but the whole seamless transition to Power 6 schools has got me like, in 3 of the more coveted players in the portal are coming out of the Summit.
Yeah. It was wild,
right?
Not wild.
And where were they before the Summit?
And there's good play. I know what you're saying.
Where were they before the Summit?
And
I'm just saying.
And there's good players available in the portal. You have Mashburn. Like there's a lot of.
Doug McDaniel's good, even though I wouldn't want to be his teammate. But Doug McDaniel's good.
Yeah, so. You've probably watched him for a while now, like in the summers too, right?
So bad. Yeah, like he's good, but good. I wouldn't want to be his teammate. I'm just saying.
Omaha couldn't have used any of those guys in their backyard.
Wait, we're gonna have this conversation about Jaden Jackson in a year or two too. So
couldn't. we're gonna have this conversation about Jaden Jackson. We're gonna have this conversation about St. Thomas. I'm gonna have this conversation.
Yeah, St. Thomas is one. Watch out! Like I'm
gonna have this conversation.
St. Thomas has listen. Like that's an under the radar like cat right now that he's got a lot.
I am going
of people coming out like big. Like
no, I know.
I'm going to have this conversation about every damn guy that comes out of Omaha.
I'm going to say this about St. because we can't be disingenuous, right? We can't just fast forward to the good stuff. A lot of the late emergence is on St. deciding, hey, I can want to be. Yep, yeah. I can put this behind me. I'm ready to move on. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to go now. I've exhaled. Now I'm gonna go get it. It's not like
he's talked about the mental health.
I don't want to make it seem like people were just overlooking this guy. A lot of people just didn't know how much he wanted
to do,
or if he wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
Now he went and got his body right, went and got his mind right. For whatever the reason, he still looks like he's growing.
He's on like draft board stuff. Like
I'm just saying if you're at the Summit level, right? You're at the Summit League level. I get that there are question marks around Saint. I can say, and you can ask Jacob, because
I know you've been on this for
I've loved
years.
Saint since he was in high school.
No, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm a St. Thomas guy. But what I'm saying is when you're at the Summit League level, you're not getting perfect prospects. You're going to have guys that are like, hey, this is a question mark I don't know about.
So
this is a question mark I don't know about.
So the problem is, this is what I'm asking you guys at the same time. And I still didn't get a great answer, maybe because it's hard. But if that's your philosophy, and you know that you're going to be a rent for somebody else to own guy later, those two worlds don't mix. You can't say to yourself, hey, you know what? There's some imperfections here. I'm going to need X amount of time to maybe work on this, this, and this. And then by the time you start to reap any sort of those benefits, those guys are out the door.
Best case scenario,
William Kyle.
That's the
William Kyle is that exact example
gig,
you said,
though.
David.
That's the hardest thing
is
about
hard,
it.
but that's the gig. Is because listen, at the Summit League level, at the D2 level, at the NAI level, there's no perfect prospects. There is, hey, I like this guy, but it's can you deal with whatever the but is, okay? And then, yes, best case scenario, if the but doesn't matter, then you get him for 3 years tops. You get him for one developmental year. You get him for one pretty good year. And then you get him for 1 year that sends him off to a high major. That's the best case scenario. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're probably not going to win very much.
I don't know. Like, here's something. Northern Colorado has butt into that the last 2 years of knowing that, hey, this is a pit stop, and they've been actually pretty good.
So what did he just say that I said you had to do that?
You have to have a mental.
You have to say it out loud.
It's hard.
I am saying it out loud.
It's super hard.
The school has to say it out
and
loud.
I'm saying it out loud to Omaha.
But remember, the caveat that I talked about last week when we started this was you have to have a couple of those claim to fames just to go with the words that you're saying.
Right.
Hey, look, we did it with. Hey, look, we
come
did
here.
it.
We can get you to where you want
Then
to go.
you can start to say it out loud.
Everybody starts at zero at some point.
You have to buy into that's who you are. Like
and
South Dakota State kind of bought into like knowing, hey, we might
lose some of these guys.
Yeah.
But guess what? That's better for us long term.
Right.
Because then we get the better versions of these guys that we already got.
Yeah, coming out of high school. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Town where a lot of these guys
I can sit here again if you need me to. I got
town where a lot of these guys are from, you could do that.
That'll work.